Walk into almost any major hotel, step into the elevator, and look at the buttons. You'll often find a peculiar mathematical error. Floor 12 sits right next to floor 14. Triskaidekaphobia is the fear of the number 13, and it's so widespread that developers globally bake this superstition right into their blueprints. Entire floors are struck from existence on paper just to appease nervous guests. But buildings are physical objects. The concrete and steel between the 12th and 14th floors don't actually vanish just because we change the numbering. So what happens when a structure forgets its own rules or actively decides to break them? Architects treat the number 13 like a structural liability. By striking it from the plans, they attempt to keep the building's geometry within the boundaries of the real world, an effort to ensure the math of the hotel always adds up. Julian was an exhausted traveler trying to outrun a heavy storm in upstate New York. He pulled his car off the highway well past midnight and found the Grand Sovereign, a massive, imposing relic built in the 1920s. The lobby was cavernous, silent, and draped in heavy patterned carpets under a decorative glass ceiling. Behind the front desk stood a tall, pale night clerk wearing a burgundy uniform that looked decades out of date. This is a vintage 1929 guest register, exactly like the heavy leather book the clerk slid across the mahogany counter. Julian signed his name in wet ink, officially adding himself to the hotel's permanent archives. Without a single word, the night clerk reached below the counter and unclipped the heavy, tarnished brass key. He handed it over. Engraved directly into the cold metal was a bold number 13. By picking up that metal tag, Julian bypassed the standard architectural skip. He accepted a physical invitation into a room the building's geometry was originally designed to exclude. Julian dragged his luggage into the creaking cage elevator and rode it to the third floor. He walked down the corridor, passing heavy oak doors, 310, 311, 312, and then, immediately next to it, 314. Between them sat a perfectly flat, wallpapered wall. He looked down at the brass key in his palm, then back up at the empty space. The physical layout confirmed the hotel skipped the number, yet he held the physical key to the missing room. As he turned to head back to the elevator, a sickening scrape echoed through the hall. The wallpapered space between the doors folded backward, extruding deep into the framework to reveal a narrow alcove. Set inside was a dark, windowless wooden door. Logic demanded he leave the building immediately and sleep in his car. Instead, a deep, creeping curiosity took hold. He stepped into the recess, raised the brass key, and slid it into the heavy iron lock. The building had physically distorted to make room for something that shouldn't exist. By opening the door, Julian was stepping into a gap in the hotel's reality. The heavy door clicked shut behind him. Instantly, the rolling thunder outside vanished. The hum of the elevator, the rattling pipes, every vibration ceased. The silence was absolute. The room itself was immaculate but entirely lifeless. There was no television, no air conditioning vent, and no electrical outlets. It looked perfectly preserved from the day the hotel first opened its doors. On the nightstand sat a small leather journal. Julian opened it and read frantic, scribbled entries from previous guests, culminating in a desperate warning about falling into a trapdoor in space. At the bottom of the final page, written in ink that was still slightly damp, was a single chilling instruction. If you received key 13, do not look in the mirror. Julian was inside a liminal trap, a pocket of existence that functioned independently of the physical laws governing the rest of the hotel. The dead silence shattered as the vintage block rotary phone on the desk exploded into violent metallic ringing. The room's dormant state was over. Julian lunged for the exit. He grabbed the brass doorknob, but it spun freely in a full circle without catching the latch. He slammed his shoulder against the wood, but it felt like striking a solid block of granite. Desperate, he sprinted across the room to the window and tore open the heavy drapes, expecting to see the wet pavement of the parking lot. Instead, he stared out into a pitch-black, infinite void. No rain, no highway, no ground. The hotel was gone. Julian was now drifting in total isolation, severed from the physical laws of the world he knew. The next morning, bright sunlight flooded the lobby of the Grand Sovereign. Coffee poured, luggage wheeled toward the exit, and Norno life carried on as if the storm had never happened. A young, modernly dressed clerk stood at the desk, cheerfully processing receipts. When a departing couple mentioned hearing frantic, muffled banging inside the walls near room 312 around 2 in the morning, he simply smiled and blamed the old plumbing. As the couple left, the clerk reached into his pocket. He pulled out Julian's key, placed the heavy brass tag into a hidden compartment beneath the register, and locked it away, keeping it secure until the hotel required it again. So the next time you find yourself checking in late after a long drive, take a moment to count the numbers on the doors as you walk down the corridor. The architectural omission of a 13th floor is a quiet warning, hiding in plain sight. If a night clerk ever slides a tarnished key across the counter and offers you that missing space, keep walking.